iOS 27 Beta 2 dropped yesterday, June 22nd, and it is already turning out to be one of the more interesting second betas Apple has released in years. Normally, a Beta 2 is mostly bug fixes, stability patches, and a handful of under-the-hood changes that only developers care about. This one is different. Apple is shipping real feature additions alongside the fixes, and the overall feel of the build has jumped noticeably compared to Beta 1. People who have been running it overnight are already reporting that it feels smoother, faster, and more finished than where Beta 1 left off. So let me walk you through everything that is new, everything that has changed, and what it tells us about UT, where iOS 27 is heading before its public release this fall. First, the basics. iOS 27 Beta 2 carries the build number 24A53H, and it is available right now for registered Apple developer program members. You install it through Settings, then General, then Software Update, and from there, you make sure iOS 27 Developer Beta is selected under the B ETA Updates option. As always with early developer betas, this is not something you want running on your primary iPhone. B battery life is still inconsistent. Some third-party apps have compatibility issues, and there are bugs that Apple has flagged in key official release notes as known issues. If you only have one iPhone, wait for the public beta in July, or better yet, the final release in September. If you have a secondary device you can test on, Beta 2 is already feeling stable enough to be genuinely useful for daily exploration. Now let me get into what actually changed. The biggest user-facing addition in Beta 2 is the Write with Siri button, and this is a significant shift in how Apple is positioning Siri's writing capabilities across the system. In Beta 1, the Write with Siri feature existed, but it was tucked away. You could only access SIT by first selecting text, after which it would appear as one of several options in the context menu. Most people testing Beta 1 reported that it felt hidden and that they kept forgetting it was there. In Beta 2, Apple H has made it unavoidable in the best possible way. A prominent Write with Siri prompt now appears directly above the keyboard in Notes, Mail, Messages, and other text input FILDs before you start typing anything. It is the first thing you see when you tap into a text field. If you start typing on your own YI without engaging it, the prompt shrinks down to just the Siri icon sitting at the edge of the keyboard, staying available without being in your way. This is a much better implementation than what Beta 1 had, and it signals that Apple sees Write with Siri as the primary writing tool going forward, a Senti ally retiring the old writing tools prompt that Apple Intelligence shipped with and replacing it with something more deeply integrated into the Siri experience. The replacement of writing tools with Write with Siri is the clearest signal yet that Apple is consolidating its AI writing features under the Siri brand rather than running them as parallel systems. The Siri expressive voice feature also got an update in Beta 2, though not in the way people were hoping. On iPhone 17 Pro and iPhone Air, Apple had introduced the ability to customize Siri's voice with options for pace, meaning how quickly Siri speaks, and expressivity, meaning the emotional range of Siri's delivery. In Beta 1, these options were present in the settings, but completely non-functional. Tapping them did nothing. In Beta 2, Apple has updated both options to display a Coming Soon label, which is more informative than options that silently fail, but also confirms that these features are not shipping in the initial betas. What this tells us is that Apple has the architecture in place for voice customization and is in the process of finalizing the models that power it. Expect these to become functional in Beta 3 or Beta 4 as the summer testing cycle progresses. The Siri performance improvements in Beta 2 are something that is difficult to quantify precisely, but that multiple testers have flagged independently and consistently. Siri AI, which is the major rebuilt version of Siri that iOS 27 introduced, and that function is more like a conversational chatbot with personal context and world knowledge. S responding noticeably faster in Beta 2 than it did in Beta 1. The latency between asking Siri a question and receiving a response H has dropped, and the quality of the responses themselves feels more reliable. This is the kind of improvement that is hard to attribute to a single change, because it likely reflects both software optimizations on device and server-side improvements to the Apple Intelligence infrastructure that powers Siri AI's responses through private cloud compute. Either way, testers who felt that Siri AI in Beta 1 was promising, but still a bit slow, are reporting that Beta 2 feels meaningfully better on this front. The Wallet app received a significant addition in Beta 2 with the introduction of the Insights feature. This is accessible by tapping the three-dot icon in the upper right corner of the e-Wallet app, and in Beta 2, it is not fully implemented yet, but Apple has put a splash screen in place that explains what it will do. Insights is going to allow users to connect financial accounts to Apple Wallet to see spending breakdowns, track recurring transactions, check account balances, and get up-to-date account information pulled directly from connected institutions. This is Apple moving Wallet from a payment card holder into something closer to a personal finance dashboard. The feature is expanding to more regions and more card types in Beta 2, and the full functionality will roll out progressively through the beta cycle. For people who have been using third-party budgeting apps, Insights looks like it could replace some of that functionality natively within iOS. The Messages app got 2 changes in Beta 2 that Android users have had for years and that iPhone users have been requesting for a long time. RCS conversations with Android users now support inline replies, meaning you can swipe right on a specific message in an RCS conversation to reply directly to it, with the quoted message appearing in your reply exactly the way it does in iMessage conversations. Now, this sounds like a small change, but it fundamentally improves the usability of group RCS chats, where multiple people are responding to different parts of a conversation simultaneously. The second RCS change is proper reaction emoji display. In iOS 26, when someone using an Android phone sent a tap back or reaction to a message, iOS would display it as plain text, something like a person loved an image which was clunky and broke the visual experience of the conversation. In iOS 27 Beta 2, reaction emoji from Android users now display directly on the message or image they were reacted to, exactly the way iMessage reactions appear. Both of these RCS improvements bring the cross-platform messaging experience in Messages significantly closer to the iMessage experience, which is something Apple has been gradually working toward since it first added RCS support. The Home app received a practical addition in Beta 2 that HomePod users will appreciate immediately. Apple has added the ability to remotely update an Apple TV 4K directly from the Home app without needing the Apple TV to be actively in use. This mirrors the functionality that already exists for HomePod updates in the Home app, and it means you can keep your Apple TV running the latest software without having to walk to the TV, turn it on, and navigate through the settings menu manually. The Apple TV now appears in the Updates section of the Home app's settings interface with an update button that installs the latest software remotely. This is a quality of life change that seems small but eliminates a genuinely tedious task for people who use Apple TV as their primary streaming device. iPhone mirroring, the feature introduced last year that allows you to control your iPhone from your Mac, received stability. Improvements in Beta 2 that address one of the most common complaints from Beta 1 testers. The feature was crashing in several scenarios in Beta 1, particularly when resizing the mirroring window on the Mac and when switching between apps on the mirrored iPhone. Beta 2 has resolved most of these crash scenarios, and the automatic return to iPhone size when ending a mirroring session now works correctly in most cases. The qualifier most cases is there because this is still a beta, and some edge case crashes are being reported, but the core functionality is substantially more reliable than it was 2 weeks ago. AirPods Max 2 owners had a frustrating experience with Beta 1 because the beta broke the ability to update their headphones firmware. Apple flagged this as a known issue in the Beta 1 release notes and has resolved it in Beta 2. AirPods Max 2 can now update firmware normally when connected to a device running iOS 27 Beta 2. If you were holding off on updating your Mac or other devices because of concerns about AirPods Max 2 firmware, Beta 2 removes that blocker. There are several smaller changes worth mentioning that collectively add up to a meaningful polish pass on the beta. The Wallet app's Create a Pass feature now offers texture options when choosing colors for custom passes, giving passes a more visually interesting appearance. HomeKit Secure. Video camera notifications can now be long pressed to watch the video from a motion alert directly from the notification without opening the Home app. The Camera Tools button in the Camera app now shows a yellow highlight when a hidden camera feature like Manual Exposure Adjustment is active, making it easier to know when a setting is active versus when the camera is running in its default configuration. The Weather app has updated its light blue text to be lighter and brighter, addressing readability complaints from Beta 1. Spotlight Search is delivering more relevant suggestions in Beta 2. AirPlay connections to Apple TV and HomePod are establishing faster. Web audio playback no longer interrupts system audio, which was a bug that affected music and podcast playback in Beta 1. And AirDrop transfer speeds are improved, continuing that up to 80% faster transfer speed improvements announced for iOS 27 at WWDC. There's also a notable removal worth flagging. Apple has confirmed that the Airport Utility app will no longer be available for download in iOS 27. Users who already have the app installed can re-download it from their purchase history, but the app will not appear in App Store, search for new users, and Apple has noted that its functionality is not guaranteed in iOS 27. This is the final signal that Apple considers the Airport Router product line fully discontinued and has no plans to maintain its companion app going forward. If you rely on Airport Utility to manage a Wi-Fi scanner workflow rather than just for airport routers themselves, This is worth noting in advance. Behind the scenes, Beta 2 has also introduced code suggesting that iCloud backup failure notifications are coming. Rather than silently failing to back up your device when Apple's servers have an issue, iOS 27 will surface a notification telling you there's a server problem and to try again later. This is a small transparency improvement, but one that addresses a real frustration where people discovered their backup had silently stopped working only when they needed it most. The overall character of iOS 27 Beta 2 is one of refinement and acceleration rather than dramatic new feature addition. The core pillars of iOS 27, Siri AI, liquid glass design language, Apple Intelligence expansion across apps, and the rebuilt camera experience were all introduced in Beta 1, and iOS 27 Bet A2 is spending its energy making those pillars work better, feel more polished, and behave more reliably. The keyboard is noticeably smoother. The indexing process that was showing a persistent badge in Beta 1 has resolved for most testers after the Beta 2 update. The general impression from people who have spent time with both betas is that iOS 27 Beta 2 feels further along in the development cycle than most second betas do, which is consistent with Apple's apparent goal this year of making stability a featured characteristic of the release rather than an afterthought. The public beta lands in July, and the final release is expected in September alongside the new iPhone lineup. Between now and then, expect to see several more developer betas that will progressively enable the features currently marked as coming soon, or to fix the remaining known issues and continue improving performance. The Siri expressive voice, pace, and expressivity options will likely become functional. The Wallet Insights feature will fill out, and the Siri AI performance improvements that are already visible in Beta 2 will continue to compound as Apple refines both the on-device models and the private cloud compute infrastructure behind them. If Beta 2 is this far along this early in the cycle, iOS 27 is shaping up to be one of the more polished releases Apple has put out in recent years,